Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So, I didn't expect to be talking about any James Bond movies on the channel. I never really planned to or anything. And this doesn't mean I'm going to. I know that sounds really negative. I'm actually a really big fan of the series. I had watched them all for the first time with my mom back when I was in high school, and I got really into it. I was reading the books and stuff. I had in high school I was library aide, and I was so excited. I found a bunch of the books there because I was not reading them as I was watching the series at the same time. I mean, at the same time, but it wasn't lining up or anything because the books and the movies are in a different order. But I got super into them, and I was bummed I didn't finish. Anyway, the reason I ended up watching Diamonds Are Forever, and I don't know when you'll get another Bond movie review from me. It's kind of funny. I watched Miracle on 34th Street yesterday, which you're gonna get a review of that in December, I think. And Natalie Wood plays one of the main characters in that. She's 8 years old or something, and then my mom was googling about her, whatever, because my mom does that whenever we watch movies, of looking up the actors and stuff and seeing what else they're in. She's reading about Natalie Wood, and then read that she has an older sister, I think named Lana, if I remember right. Yeah, Lana Wood, who was one of the characters in this movie. Not even a main character or anything. She plays a character named Plenty O'Toole, who has a very small part in the movie. I think she's only in the movie for 5 minutes, and I guess she was talking about that with my dad or whatever, and he was like, okay, we're gonna watch Diamonds or whatever, and I'm like, oh, all right. I liked the movie. I was fine with that. I just found that kind of funny that they wanted to see her in the movie, but they sometimes, I mean, I rewatch movies just as the actors too, but if it's someone that's not a main character, I know they're gonna have a small part. I usually just look for their scenes because I knew what the name of the character was already and whatever. I just look for their scenes on YouTube, so it was kind of funny to me to watch an entire movie, rewatch an entire movie just for a character that's just for an actor playing a character that's in the movie for 5 minutes. But whatever, I'll take pretty much any excuse to watch a James Bond movie. I didn't really remember this one too much. Like I said, I watched all of these back when I was in high school, so it was 5 or 6 years ago. Well, not all the James Bond movies, whatever was up to there at the time. At the time, not all the Daniel Craig ones were out yet. So it's been probably a couple years since I've seen the latest Bond movie. Anyway, but in terms of the Sean Connery ones, the really old ones, yeah, it's definitely been some time. So I only remembered a little bit of this one. I remembered the stuff when Bond meets Tiffany Case, and he meets her for the first time, and she's trying all these different wigs, and I remembered Bond escaping this space room or whatever, in a moon buggy and going across the desert, because it just seemed kind of silly to me. I'm surprised I didn't remember more of this, because this is the one where they go to all of these casinos. There's a bajillion hotels in this movie, and the plot goes from trying to get these diamonds that are being smuggled across the US to stopping this ocean base from using the diamonds to power up a space laser, which sounds really silly. And I was surprised I didn't remember, I knew this was at the tail end of Sean Connery's Bond movies. I just couldn't remember how far down it was, and I should have been clued in from the beginning, because it starts with Bond being super pissed, and I noticed they weren't showing Sean Connery's face at first until a couple of scenes in. It was you could hear his voice though, so you knew it was him, where he's desperately trying to find Blofeld, and I was thinking, why is he trying to find Blofeld so bad? And then I remembered the previous movie, which I guess I'm going to be spoiling something about that right now, for oh gosh, what is it called? It's one that doesn't have Sean Connery. On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah, I should have remembered that. That's actually one of my favorite Bond movies. But yeah, spoiler for the ending of that one, like the reason Bond's like so pissed here trying to find Blofeld is that's the one where he gets married and then Blofeld literally shoots his wife. So of course this one starts off where he's like really pissed and he's trying to find Blofeld, and they have this whole thing where it's like, oh, supposedly he killed Blofeld, but then it turns out to be a clone, and or not like a clone, I think it's like plastic surgery or something, and they do mention about it at the beginning, which I actually forgot about that, because like for the first half of the movie, Bond's trying to go against this guy I think named like Willard White, who's the guy that's like trying to get the diamonds, and then Bond gets to his hotel or something because it's like, oh, this guy who's controlling all the casinos and trying to get the diamonds or whatever hasn't left his house. It's called like the White House, but white is like spelled differently or something, in like 5 years or whatever. And then the guy turns out to be Blofeld, who is not only using like a voice changer thing, which I thought was pretty cool, but he also has like a clone of himself, not a clone, I keep saying clone because I'm not thinking of the right word, but like someone that had went, like Blofeld keeps having people go through like plastic surgery or whatever in order to look like him, basically to create like body doubles so that Bond doesn't actually kill him, and that's like one of the people Bond killed at the beginning. But yeah, it took me a while to like remember about that, that like specifically On Her Majesty's Secret Service was first, because I was thinking, oh yeah, Blofeld has to survive this movie because he has to, you know, like go kill Bond's wife in like the next movie, and then the doubles came up and it was like, oh no, you didn't actually kill me, Bond, and I'm like, oh okay, so you can like die in this one now. Or actually no, because I remember with one of the Roger Moore ones, because Live and Let Die is like the movie after this. I don't think it's in that one, surprisingly. I think it's in like Moore's second or third movie, where it has this intro where they kill off Blofeld and he's in a wheelchair and they drop him into like a chimney or something, except I don't think that Eon's allowed to use him at that point, if I remember right, so they don't show his face. It's like a really weird scene, especially if you hadn't been like watching the movies in order and stuff. So like Bond eventually does get Blofeld, but it's not till like later. But that was always something that was cool with like the older Bond movies. I mean, I think it's pretty much just with like the Connery and Lazenby movies, if I remember right, where it's just Bond for like 3 or 4 movies trying to like, where Blofeld's like the main villain, but then even before that with the whole Spectre stuff, it's like they kind of tease him with these shots of like someone with a different voice petting a white cat, because that's always the thing for Blofeld, is having that like really fluffy cat, which is always funny to me for me to see now that I've seen like Austin Powers. Well, I grew up with Austin Powers, but like I didn't realize it was like a James Bond parody when I was younger, because I hadn't seen Bond. But like in those, they have a character that Dr. Evil, one of my favorite movie villains of all time, is like a parody of Lorne Michaels and Blofeld from James Bond, where he's like the hairless cat and stuff. I do like that Blofeld is played by like different actors in like the different Bond movies and stuff, or like with the early ones anyway. I'm not referring to like the ones with Daniel Craig where they do that stupid thing where they make like Blofeld his brother or something, but it's kind of cool because like Blofeld, like in this one for example, as I mentioned, is already like making doubles of himself anyway, so it's kind of not far-fetched. He like keeps getting played by different actors and stuff, especially because they do the same thing of course with like Bond and with Moneypenny and basically like everyone that's not Q pretty much. Oh yeah, I still gotta talk about the plot of this movie. Okay, so let's see. I'll talk about Lana Wood first, actually, because that's the whole reason I was apparently watching this movie. Because there's usually, like, with the Bond movies, there's, like, a main Bond girl, but there's usually, like, a secondary Bond girl who shows up, like, early on, and Bond is usually trying to get information from her or something, and then she usually dies, and then there's like a second Bond girl that's like the main one that lasts throughout the whole movie, because Plenty O'Toole, which is just like a goofy name. A lot of the Bond girls have like pun names, and some of them get like completely ridiculous. I feel like this one's supposed to be more of a pun, but I can't figure it out. But having Plenty as a first name is kind of funny. But she's just this woman that Bond meets in a casino, and they hang out for a bit. I don't even think she's like someone he's trying to get like information from, and then I think she gets like thrown out a window or something, and the person that throws her out the window says something of like, oh, I didn't know there was a pool there. What, like they like plan to kill her, but she lands in a pool, but then she drowns later in a pool. I don't know, she doesn't have like a really big role, but the main Bond girl is this woman named Tiffany Case, who's like a diamond smuggler, because Bond spends like the first half an hour or so of this movie pretending to be a guy named I think like Peter Franks or something like that, who's supposed to like partner with Tiffany to like smuggle the diamonds and stuff. I like that even before the diamonds enter the US, like when M and there's this other guy I don't remember the name of, they're like telling Bond of like, yeah, we have this diamond mining operation in like South Africa or something. It's like super airtight, the diamonds don't get stolen or anything, and they're like giving this narration, and then you see on screen, you see like the miners, and they're going to like the dentist that's there, and they're like getting the diamonds out that way of like they're in their mouth, and then they get paid, and then the diamonds you see like the whole smuggling journey until they get to the US. So it's like, yeah, it's not as airtight as they thought. I thought Tiffany was like just okay as a Bond girl. I forgot with a lot of the early ones, especially in like the Roger Moore, Sean Connery movies, that the Bond girls are kind of just like there to be pretty. They're not usually really smart, even if they're supposed to be like agents themselves. Like some of the ones I remember are supposed to be like CIA agents and stuff, but then they don't end up being helpful. Like a lot of the time they're just kind of there. They like flirt with Bond. They like, there's like always a sex scene in these movies, which was kind of funny because like I said something when the movie started. I was like, oh, I'm surprised this is PG. And my mom said something of like, well, yeah, because, you know, they're only like a bit suggestive or whatever. And then meanwhile, Tiffany Case is wearing like a bikini for half this movie, which is kind of funny. At one point, Blofeld has to tell her of like, oh, can you like put something on so you don't distract the people? It's like during the like the villain lair thing or whatever, and she puts on this like little shirt that doesn't really cover anything or whatever. But you know, these always have like or especially with the early Bond movies, having like the iconic intros and stuff of like the dancing silhouetted women and whatever. So like, yeah, it's a bit more than suggestive. Anyway, the intros, I really miss those. I think music wise, that's something I miss from a lot of like the older Bond movies actually. But the intros, with like the dancing women, and they always have like the plot item and stuff. I mean, those like, that is like a thing that continues for a bunch more of the intros, I think, until maybe like the Craig movies. I don't completely remember, but the song Diamonds Are Forever, which I think is like the second or third Shirley Bassey Bond theme and stuff, it's iconic. It's always really good. It got stuck in both my mom and I's head once we finished the movie. I was actually just talking about it with her before I started recording, and we were just kind of humming it along and whatever, but it's really good. I think it's just as good as if we're talking about like Shirley Bassey themes and stuff, because there's like Diamonds Are Forever, Goldfinger, and Moonraker. I think it's like just as good as Goldfinger. That's probably like the more famous of the two, but I think it's just as good. It's those type of like really powerful Bond songs like that I always really like, because they kind of turn into like a bit more of like kind of softer ballads somewhat in like the Roger Moore movies. I'm saying somewhat because literally the next movie after this one, Live and Let Die, which I kind of want to rewatch now, has, you know, like Paul McCartney in the Wings, and it's one of the coolest Bond songs in my sorry, I can like geek out over Bond title themes like all day. They're so fun to talk about. But yeah, the song's good, and it's always great when you have a good title song in a Bond movie, because you're gonna hear it like throughout the entire movie as like instrumentals and stuff, which is pretty cool. Of course the score is good. I really miss the John Barry musical scores in the Bond movies, because I know those go all the way up till like 1987 or something. I know the last one is The Living Daylights, but yeah, I forgot that he did like all the Connery ones too. I mean, those are like way before The Living Daylights, but it's been a while since I've watched a Connery Bond movie, actually, because I know Sean Connery is like a lot of people's favorite Bond actor and stuff, and like the one everyone always thinks of with Bond. He's not actually even in my top 3. Like, I like all the Bond actors, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I don't know, I'm okay with him, I guess. I have like some others as favorites, honestly, but you know, he's fine here. It's kind of weird watching him though, because which one of this is his? I know it's the last of his, at least in terms of the Eon ones. There's actually, I think, like one more that he does after this, but it's not made by Eon Productions, and I don't really know about that one very well. Okay, yeah, this is his 6th, because it's like he makes 5, and then they have George Lazenby for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then Diamonds Are Forever. So it's kind of weird, you know, like they switch actors for Bond for the first time, and then they go back to Sean Connery, and then they switch Bond actors again. But he's like quite a bit older here. I don't know how old he is, but I think I could see some like visible gray. Not too bad though, because like, you know, they kept Roger Moore around for a while where he was like really too old for the role, where you can notice where he isn't doing a lot of the like cool stunts and stuff anymore. It makes oh gosh, whatever his last one was, like really hard to watch. But this one isn't like too bad. Like Sean Connery's still doing a lot of the like, I mean, I know it's, of course it's not him doing like all the stunts and whatever, but you know, you can tell he's like a bit older compared to when he started playing Bond. But like he does all right, you know. Like this movie, I like it. I don't, like I said, it's been a while since I've watched some of his, so I don't really know where to compare it in terms of just like of the Bond movies the specific Bond actor made. But yeah, this one's all right. I like the whole plot of like trying to get the diamonds, and oh wait, no, I was talking about the John Barry score. Sorry, my memory's just like all over the place with stuff. Let me talk about the music first, and then I'll talk about the diamond lasers and stuff. Yeah, I was talking about John Barry. But yeah, his musical scores are always good. There's one particular song I liked, and it's the one when they're using the laser for the first time, and they're actually showing it in space and revealing like, oh, that's the location of the diamonds, which is kind of funny because they never get those diamonds out of the satellite. The satellite doesn't get blown up or anything. It's just covered with the diamonds, and it's just in space forever, and that's like how the movie ends. Like they even make a joke of it at the end where Tiffany's like, hey Bond, how are we gonna get the diamonds down? But that was kind of funny to me, of like the diamonds never really matter in the end. I mean, they are essential to the plot in that they power up the big laser and stuff, the satellite, but they don't really matter. But anyway, when the satellite laser is like first being used, there's this song that plays. I don't know what it's called, but it's kind of very slow. It does sound a little spacey. I really liked it. It made me think of and I'm pretty sure John Barry's the same composer for the Incredibles movies. I watched the first one as a kid, but it wasn't until I watched the Bond movies where I'm like, yeah, a lot of this Bond music is just reminding me of the Incredibles. It's because it's like the same guy. But whatever the song is in this one that like plays when the laser's first being used, it has this sort of kind of majestic, not really like spacey as in like, you know how sci-fi music can sound kind of like weird, or whatever kind of, I don't know how to describe it. But it majestic's kind of like the right word. It's kind of slow paced the way it builds. But all the music in here is good. It's funny, I was thinking about like space music, and I was trying to remember the music from Moonraker. It probably sounds like it would be similar to that, because Moonraker is like the space James Bond movies, like kind of the best way to sum it up. And it's kind of interesting watching this one where it goes to like the Roger Moore movies after this, where those definitely tend to have some silly moments, not all of them or anything. I feel a little bad saying, well, the Roger Moore movies, not all of them are like my favorite of the Bond movies, but like Roger Moore is my favorite of like the Bond actors, so it feels kind of funny to talk about. But those tend to get a bit silly. This one has like kind of some silly moments too, like we're slowly approaching like silly territory. Not that it continues immediately, because I remember Live and Let Die wasn't really silly or anything. It's more of like some of the later Roger Moore movies, but this one has like some silly moments, like Bond driving the moon buggy or whatever. Like he leaves this little space set, and he's actually escaping like the villains, not the final layer or anything, but it's like this space in the desert, and Bond's being chased by these like guys in motorcycles or whatever, but just him escaping in the moon buggy is really goofy. Or there's this part I like very clearly remembered, where it's just kind of like, come on, there's no way that's happening. Bond and Tiffany, they have this car chase. They're just being chased around by police officers in like Las Vegas, which it's not really an exciting car chase, but it's kind of cool in terms of the location, because you're seeing all these signs. And I was watching this, like I mentioned, with my parents, and my parents were looking at the signs and naming all of these places, because this was made in 1971, that just aren't in Vegas anymore. Like even at the end of the movie, they have like a list of all the hotels, and my parents were saying that like most of those aren't even there anymore. So it's kind of weird to think about. It's always interesting to me to watch these like older movies and stuff of like locations and things, or the way people dress that just don't exist anymore. It's interesting with the Bond movies, because they start from like the 60s, and you like literally, if you just watch all of them in order, you just see how like fashion and everything evolves. My mom kept pointing out like all the people wearing go-go boots in this movie, for example, because it's like the early 70s, but it still has like a lot of the 60s fashion and cars. There's of course a lot of cool like older cars in this movie as well. But anyway, there's a car chase with these police officers, and Bond is getting kind of cornered, and he sees this little ramp, and he flips the car to the side and drives it between this like super narrow wall. And it's just one of those moments where it's just like, come on, man. I mean, it's not completely ridiculous compared to like some of the other Bond movies. Like, what is it? The one with Pierce Brosnan and Halle Berry, I think, gets like pretty freaking ridiculous. Like, we're not approaching that level of like, silly territory. But the fact that we're kind of getting more moments like that, I'm like, oh, right, that's kind of where it goes for a bit. But that's what's interesting to me with the series, where sometimes the movies will go from being like, they get a little more silly, and then they'll get really serious again, and it kind of like flip-flops for a while. Man, I know this is like partially talking about the movie and partially talking about the series, but this is kind of making me want the excuse to just rewatch all of them again. Though if I do, I promise I'll like put them in a, even if, I'll be talking about them at different points or whatever, and it might put what I'm saying kind of out of order, I'll put them in like a playlist of when the movies come out and stuff. My dad was even saying that too. He's like, okay, maybe we should just rewatch all of them again, because it's kind of making me want to watch the other Sean Connery Bond movies, because I really liked this one. I'm not like too excited to watch some of his other ones if I do. I remember I didn't really like Thunderball, and I remember I didn't really like the one I'm kind of about You Only Live Twice, and Dr. No is like pretty simple for being like the first Bond movie and stuff. I'm kind of like about some of the Connery movies. I think this is kind of one of the better ones. But like I said, I feel like I'd have to rewatch those to kind of give more of a recent opinion, really. But this one of like the diamonds, I just keep thinking about the diamonds used as the laser. That was actually a really cool moment, and the fact that there's like consequences that like Bond can't fix. Like, yeah, he ends up stopping the laser, and I mean, now the diamonds are stuck in a satellite just in space forever. It's more of like he destroys the controls, so the laser, the satellite can't be used. But you do actually get like footage or whatever of like missiles around the world, not just in America, because this movie mostly takes place in like the US, like actually getting destroyed and stuff. So that's actually kind of nice, that not that things are getting blown up and Blofeld's like causing shit to happen, but more so of like, Bond doesn't get to save everyone, and these missiles keep getting blown up, and it could, have like further consequences and stuff. But I completely forgot about that part of the plot. Like, I remember that they go to get the diamonds. I didn't remember what happened to the diamonds because it's just been that long since I've seen this. Let me see what else. But yeah, I liked Bond and Tiffany towards the beginning, where they're like trying to track down the diamonds, and then they end up having to like go to this hotel casino. Oh yeah, they go to the Circus casino, which I didn't know that was a thing. That was actually pretty cool, because you do actually get to see the performers, and that's just crazy to me, to like go to a casino and there's all these people with the gambling machines and stuff, which I guess my parents were laughing at the design of those, and then the camera will go up and then you see all these people like flying over your head and stuff. That's pretty crazy. So it's cool with this movie to just see stuff like that, and to see like Las Vegas. I feel like this is one of the Bond movies where I'm like kind of more focused on the setting than anything else, and it's kind of nice that it like mostly stays within like a couple of places, really, because I keep thinking about some of the later Bond movies where Bond's always going these exotic locations and stuff, and you'll go from like location to location to location, where I feel like you don't really get to absorb them all. So it's nice that it doesn't change too much, because like they end up going to Vegas and they stay there for a while because that's where they're trying to find Blofeld. And then at the end, they go to an oil rig. That's like Blofeld's lair and stuff, that's in California, of all places. It's in Baja California. So it's only really those like 2 locations. That's about it. Let me think what else. There's always like hench people and stuff. Like, there's some pretty iconic ones throughout the series, like Jaws, for example. And this, because there's always like whoever the hench people are of the movie, and in this case it's these 2 assassins named Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd. I don't remember in some of the earlier Bond movies if they have like characters. I noticed because of the dialogue and stuff, where I wasn't sure. I'm like, are they a couple? Like, are they gay? I think they are, though. That was kind of cool to see in an older movie. It was kind of weird though, like my parents were talking during some of those parts where it was like kind of basically confirmed, and they're like, they said something along the lines of like, oh, this is like the first time we're seeing like gay people in an older movie, and I'm like, there's no way this is your first time in a movie like this old or whatever. But yeah, I forgot about that. What I don't like about their characters is their haircuts. They both have like really stupid haircuts, but especially okay, actually, wait, I don't remember which one's which. One of them is, like, sort of bald, and has, like, these, what you could barely call, like, bangs or whatever, and then the other one has these bangs that stick out really weird. I think they both have, like, really bad haircuts, and I don't know if that's supposed to be, like, on purpose. It is kind of interesting. I didn't know who they were working for exactly. Like, I knew Blofeld's the villain and stuff. It's just you never actually see them talking to Blofeld or in like any scenes with him at all. Oh, apparently these 2 have a Wikipedia page. I just clicked on it. Didn't know that one of the actors It's actually a jazz musician. That's kind of interesting. I didn't recognize either of them, but I was mostly distracted by their haircuts. But yeah, throughout the movie you see them doing stuff, and they keep ending up in like the same places as Bond, but they'll be like doing stuff and Bond doesn't notice them. I don't think Bond actually even gets to meet either of them until like the end of the movie, because the end of the Bond movies, after like Bond stops the villain, are usually the same, where it's like Bond and the Bond girl are like chilling and stuff, and Bond's like, okay, the mission's over. Sometimes they're like having sex or whatever, and then there's like hench people that show up that Bond did not fight, did not like kill at like previously in the movie or something, so he's got to deal with them, and it's like one last attack to like try to kill Bond. In this one it's pretty silly. I mean, I think they usually are. A lot of those moments are like really silly actually. Oh gosh, like I remember the Moonraker. I think Bond ends up in like space at the end. There's like a really stupid joke with like a rocket or something, but with this one it's that Bond and Tiffany are on like a cruise ship or something, where Bond's like heading back home, and then Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd are there, and they have a bomb that's in a cake, and they literally call the cake something of like bomb surprise, but they say surprise in a weird way, and somehow that does not tip off Bond, and then he has to deal with that. It's one of those like, oh, the Bond girl has to not be helpful and just kind of be there kind of moments. Though she does end up destroying the cake, like she throws it and misses, and that reveals the Bond. And there's this stupid part where Bond throws one of the hench people into the water, and he does this like really long flip or whatever, but the bomb is tied to his hand, so he explodes like mid flip, and then they reveal that the diamonds are still in the satellite or whatever, and they just never took care of that. So the ending's pretty silly, but like a lot of them, you know, usually are or whatever. What else? Bond's CIA friend Felix is in this for a little bit, where he helps him out with like this stuff with the funeral home. I'm so used to him being played by Jeffrey Wright in like the Daniel Craig movies that I actually forgot, because I think they have like, I actually don't know how many actors they have play Felix Leiter in like the pre-Daniel Craig movies. I'm imagining if I had to pick a number, at least like 4, because he usually has like a small role in all of these, except for in License to Kill, because that one's actually about him. But yeah, he usually has like a small role where he helps out like Bond in some way. Let me see what else. There was a couple times where Bond is in these like really claustrophobic situations. I was surprised it didn't make me feel claustrophobic. I keep thinking about that, because one of the ways they're like trying to get the diamonds is they're inside of a guy. I don't know how Bond put diamonds in a corpse. I'm not gonna ask, but they end up inside of a corpse, and then they end up inside of an urn because the body gets burned from like inside of a coffin. I'm not really sure how that works. I was a little confused by that. But then Bond ends up inside of a coffin, and then he's like being burned in there, and he has to like get out because he's unconscious or whatever. And then he gets some a lot of times when I'm like watching these movies, I think of like, okay, how often does Bond get lucky where there really is no way for him to get out? Like, I don't know how he could have gotten out. I'm assuming coffins have some kind of thing of like, you press a button to say like, hey, I'm still alive or whatever, but the doors had already been like locked or whatever, and Bond only got saved because there's this guy that's like, hey, where's the money for the diamonds, because they got like switched out and Bond got like knocked unconscious or whatever. And then there's another part where Bond ends up inside of this giant metal tube that there's all these cranes that are bearing all these tubes, and I guess Blofeld's paying all that money just to get Bond buried in the giant metal tube, and he makes friends with a rat, like an actual like physical rat, and then the rat leaves and Bond gets like rescued in that part again. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. There's just like a couple of scenes where he's in these like really claustrophobic places where he just keeps getting rescued by people, but that happens like throughout the series of like other people saving him or whatever. I like when he meets Blofeld and you have the reveal of like, oh, Wilfred White or whatever his name is, is actually Blofeld. I mean, I guess it is sort of foreshadowed in the sense that, like, we knew that Blofeld from, like, the beginning of the movie. We see him talk to whoever works for him of, like, yeah, I want this plastic surgery thing done, and Bond, like, supposedly killing Blofeld at the beginning of the movie. So I guess that kind of foreshadows it a little bit of, like, okay, that makes sense that he's not pulling this, like, I have a body double thing out of nowhere. But I do like that reveal, especially because, like, Bond gets taken to this, like, penthouse or whatever, and Blofeld is just chilling there, and then he sends Bond out and he gets knocked out in an elevator. But Blofeld doesn't even have, like, any guards or anything. There's just two of them, and they both have a gun, and Bond has a gun, and that's, like, pretty much about it. And Bond, to be fair, does kill one of them, which that was kind of a funny scene, because there you see Blofeld's white cat, and the cat gets tossed onto the corpse, and then it turns out there's actually, like, a second cat. So I just find it funny that Blofeld, he made, like, a body double basically, and then also gave the body double his own cat. I get it's supposed to be, like, Blofeld, his signifying thing, like, to identify him is always having that cat. Maybe it would have thrown Bond off if, like, Bond shows up and it's like, okay, where's your cat or whatever, especially because one of the cats is wearing a ring of diamonds. I'm surprised no one, like, tries to take, like, Bond doesn't try to confiscate those or anything. But oh yeah, because there's a cat in the intro. I forgot about that. I guess that kind of also spoils it, because I always forget that the intros do usually kind of spoil stuff. Not to the same degree as, like, anime intros where they give away literally everything. I mean, I think some of the Craig movies do kind of reach that point with their title intros. But with this one, you see Blofeld's cat with these diamonds alongside, like, all the dancing women or whatever. So now that I'm thinking about it, I guess that shows of, like, yeah, this movie's gonna be about Blofeld. It's, like, for being the last time that, like, Sean Connery's Bond gets to fight Blofeld, it's kind of I don't know. I guess it works. I still don't really know how I feel about this one, because I liked it, but just the fact that I've, like, watched other Bond movies, I feel like it's not as exciting as, like, the previous movie where Blofeld, I guess I'll be talking a little bit about On Her Majesty's Secret Service now, where Blofeld is in this, like, mountain resort. He has this really cool, like, mountain base. Like I said, he ends up killing that Bond has to, like, invade with all of these people. It's one of those, like, we have to invade the base sort of things. I mean, Bond does that in this one too, but it's just him and later some of the CIA people. It's not as grand of, like, the invasion of the base and stuff as in, like, some of the other Bond movies. It's a little disappointing. But, like, in Osmosis, wait, there's no O between the S's. Dang it. I mean, I know it's you could turn it into an acronym, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but there's too many consonants. Anyway, yeah, there's, like, a mountain base. Blofeld shows up at the end. He kills Bond's wife. That's, like, the big thing with that movie. So, and then this one is cool that it starts off with, like, Bond's really pissed. Like I mentioned, he's trying to find Blofeld to get, like, personal revenge, and he thinks he kills Blofeld, and then he gets to actually see Blofeld again later in the movie, but Bond's, like, not as angry or anything, and it just kind of, the rest of the movie turns into just, like, a typical encounter with Blofeld. I thought this was going to be, like, the revenge movie a little bit, and it's kind of funny to think about, though, because we do sort of get one of those. That's basically how you can sum up License to Kill, except that one's not actually about Bond's wife. It's about Felix Leiter and his wife, but in my mind I kind of substitute that one in a sense with, like, this one. But that's like the one thing, like, if you're watching these in order and like back to back, it's, like, a little disappointing. I mean, like I said, eventually Roger Moore's Bond gets to drop Blofeld into a chimney, but it's just kind of tacked on at the beginning of, like, a later movie. So that's the thing that's, like, a bummer to me, of, like, this is one of the last big moments. This is, like, pretty much, like, the last big fight against, like, Blofeld, because other than that, I don't think he's in the Roger Moore ones, and he doesn't show up again until like the Daniel Craig movies where he's like reintroduced. So for this being like the final fight with like Blofeld, it's not very like as exciting as it should be. But yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. It makes me kind of want to go back to the books, because I know the books and the movies are in like different orders, so I'm wondering if maybe there it's like a bit more you know, kind of exciting and stuff. Okay, wait, hold on. I'm reading for the writing part. I'm scrolling through this movie. Okay. Yeah, so there were drafts of this, of like Bond avenging like the death of his wife, and then they decided not to do that. And then it turned into a movie about being set in Las Vegas. Man, yeah, that's a bummer. Let me just look through the plot description on Wikipedia to see if I'm like missing anything. But yeah, I mentioned about the invading the base of operations thing. It's not as cool as in the other movies. I do think it's like sort of a cool setting of like it's the oil rig that nobody can find. But it's not as cool as like other Bond lair locations. I mean, in You Only Live Twice, there's Blofeld's lairs like in a freaking volcano. I don't really know how you can top that. There's some of the earlier ones where there's like an underwater base, like underwater. And this one is just like an oil rig. I mean, I guess it makes sense because like Blofeld's trying to hide, and the real cool thing is like supposed to be the giant satellite space laser. That's like the one saving thing for like the ending of this movie. But it was really funny that like Bond, eventually Blofeld is trying to escape in this like little mini submarine, and then Bond gets inside of the crane that's controlling it, and he just starts swinging Blofeld around in that little submarine. Like it's one of those little rides at like Disneyland or something where they swing you around or whatever. That was actually kind of funny, and Bond looked like so happy doing that. It's such a huge smile on his face. And then it's kind of weird where it's like, you know, he's swinging Blofeld around, and then Bond jumps out of the inside of the crane, and then the oil rig explodes. So you kind of have to assume that like Blofeld dies there, but then they kill someone off, you know, the dropping him down a chimney thing where it's like supposed to be Blofeld, but the characters don't acknowledge it. So I guess technically that's like the way they kill him off, which is like kind of a bummer. But yeah, that's the thing with this movie of like the locations are really cool. I like that it takes place in Las Vegas. I like the big satellite laser. It's always cool seeing Bond like fight Blofeld. But there's so many things I'm like about with this movie. I feel like I liked kind of the first half of it, of them like trying to get the diamonds and stuff. And Bond pretending to be Peter Franks than like the rest of the movie. Cause like, why am I already forgetting her name? Tiffany Case is like, is like a Bond girl. But I mean, I remember a lot of the early ones are like that, where they're kind of just like there and not really that like smart or anything. Like I like Tiffany when she's like originally introduced. She comes off as like a little bit sassy and like trying to be a bit smart of like dealing with Bond, where she doesn't know that it's Bond. Like she does this thing where she gives him a drink and then puts his thumbprint through this machine to like check that he's like Peter Franks and stuff, and it matches because, you know, Q had thought ahead and made Bond this like thumbprint thing or whatever on his thumb. So having stuff like that of her like trying to be cautious and whatever is fine. But then I guess eventually she finds out that he's like Bond, and she knows she's gonna go to jail, so she keeps trying to talk to Q about like, hey, can you not put me in jail even though I'm working on like the good guy team. And I guess, you know, by the end she she does try to help Bond towards the end, but she ends up switching the cassette tapes that ends up controlling the laser, so she does kind of screw over the plot a little bit towards the end. Even when she's trying to be helpful, it makes me feel like a little bad for her, because there's this like little cassette tape or whatever that controls the laser. I like how they actually reveal the location of it like multiple times in the movie, because the camera keeps lingering on this this little case that's labeled for like marching music or whatever, so like the audience knows it's like important and stuff. And I actually forgot about it throughout the movie until Blofeld's like, yeah, it's small enough to be put into like a case. Or not Blofeld, but like someone else is like, yeah, this cassette could be any size, it's whatever. And you realize like, oh, okay, it's supposed to go in here. So this like movie does have some nice twists and stuff. But yeah, like the Bond girl, I feel almost bad calling Tiffany Case a bad Bond girl, because there's like other ones from like early on, or I remember mostly a lot of the early ones. Not saying like all of them, but there's definitely like more besides her that are just kind of there, not really helpful, and like scream at things and stuff. It almost reminds me of like some of the like early Doctor Who companions as well, where it's like the female companions that have these similar roles where they just don't really get to do anything. But I think I'm kind of disappointed with Tiffany Case, because this is literally right after On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I mentioned about Bond's wife, her name's Tracy, and she's one of my favorite Bond girls, not just because I really like that movie, but she's actually really smart and she's able to keep up with Bond and like actually helps him out with stuff. I think she's like a fun character. So yeah, if it's just like this movie on its own, then I'm kind of judging it. I mean, again, I don't really know if I can compare it to some of the other Sean Connery movies, because I don't really, it's like been a while since I've watched them. But like as a movie, like on its own, if we're like ignoring it's a Bond movie, I think it's like, it's fine, you know. I like it. I mean, I at least like it more than some of the other ones like I'd mentioned from what I remember. But like as a Bond movie, I feel like, yeah, there's like better ones for sure. I mean, I feel like I kind of have to judge some of the like early like 60s 70s ones. This is from like 71, kind of in like their own category, especially because like they don't kind of age well. There's like kind of a bit of racist stuff in this one, actually. I'd forgotten about that. But yeah, these don't always like age well for sure, or like as good as some of the like sequel Bond movies and stuff. But I think this one specifically, it has that sort of added blow of being the one, like not only being like the final one for Sean Connery, at least in terms of like the Eon productions, where you really want him to go out with a bang, but like he's a bit older, it's just not really as good of a movie. It's like his final confrontation with like Blofeld, you know, in general, and that's like also, you know, kind of a bummer here. And then the fact that this is the one that's like right after On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and that was like such a cool one that had like really important stuff happen. It just, all of that together makes this one kind of like a it's all right, you know. So yeah, that's kind of how I have to judge it. I feel like I have to judge it both like kind of individually, but also like how does it rank against some of the others and some of the other like characters and stuff. But yeah, if I'm just judging it on its own, it's, you know, gets like a bit of a better ranking from me. But yeah, I don't know if I'll watch more of these. I feel like if I had to just like kind of pick out a Bond movie I was gonna like just watch, you know, just for fun or something, I would have picked some of the other ones. But like I said, I didn't pick this one. It was literally just my parents wanted to see Lana Wood in a Bond movie. I thought she did fine, by the way. I found her character a bit annoying, just kind of the way she talks, but I mean, it gave me an excuse to watch but I'll take like whatever excuse to watch like almost any Bond movie, honestly. But this kind of put me in the mood for some, and I think my parents, it seemed like, kind of felt the same way. So you might get some more reviews from me. I mean, even if they don't want to watch any with me, I have almost all of these on DVD, so I might just like watch some of my favorites. Maybe I'll watch all of them. They might be kind of like spread out through the months, depends on my pre-recording, but like I'll make a playlist once I start, you know, of like trying to put them in order. We'll see. All right, well, thanks for listening. I know this kind of sounded like mostly negative. I mean, I try not to be, and there's like I said, Bond movies I like a bit less. It's all just kind of on a scale for me, really. But it is nice to talk about this series again. I did miss it, because it's actually one that I'm a really big fan of. But yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.